right, everybody, we're back with the ATB NFL Live Show. We have the full complement of the boys this time. Not just me and Tony. We got Zach back here. It's been a few weeks since we've seen Zach on the show, and really only two of us have been on the show in the last few weeks either, so we can't even say anything.
Yeah, it was a long hiatus.
Yeah, it was definitely a long hiatus, but we're back. It's playoff time, so it's perfect time to be back. Before we get into that, though, obviously Tony and Zach joining me today, we're going to talk about the head coach openings in the NFL, give some thoughts on guys that we're thinking could be in line for these jobs, also kind of who we would maybe be looking at ourselves in some cases too. Just talking through that, seeing if we can kind of formulate, where would these guys end up? How would that kind of affect the league a little bit? And then we will jump into the NFL playoff picks, right? So we're going to talk about all 6 games happening this weekend and Monday night, including what to look for there. There's definitely some interesting stuff with the games weather-wise. We know that. We've been hearing about that all week, and you can see by all of our
three of us,
all of our headlines here. Yeah, unplanned. We just knew that this is what is going to be, right? Grab your shovels. Weather equalizes. We'll talk about that, Tony. And I can't feel my face negative too. Yeah, you're not going to feel your face at that point, Zach. So, but let's jump into some head coach openings here. I want to start with you, Tony, on the first one. I have my order, so I'll just go down through that, then you can let me know what you feel for those teams. Let's start with the Falcons. I think it's one of definitely the more high impact ones, right? Because there's a lot of talent on that team offensively. The defense performed very well this year. There's a lot of potential here if the right person is picked, I think, especially in an NFC South that wasn't very strong this past year, and I don't know how soon it's going to be strong again, especially with some of the quarterback play and other things in that division. So what do you think for the Falcons here, Tony?
First off, congrats on getting rid of Arthur Smith. That was very necessary.
Yes, yeah, that was huge.
Thank you, New Orleans, for being the straw that broke the camel's back.
Nail in the coffin there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jameis.
Dude, that whole thing too. But yeah,
that was amazing. Yeah. Which I am still surprised. And
dangerous.
That
dangerous.
I am amazed that Dennis Allen still has a job.
Yeah.
The players revolting on him, and he keeps his job as an interesting one.
Immediate troll, unreal troll job.
And he threw them under the bus.
Honestly, he should have. That's so messed up that they did that. The defense is very intentionally taking that play off out of sportsmanship, and then you do that shit. That's wrong. But it was funny. So, and it got Arthur Smith fired. Back to the Falcons coaching job. Funny that we let off with this one because I think we all know they're big game hunting, right? Like they want Bill. Bill's the favorite to go there. I have a dark horse team for Bill, so that he's not going here. I think they swing and miss on that, and then it's really hard to figure out where they want to go because I think they're keeping Ryan Nielsen, forcing a marriage, so that eliminates a lot of the top candidates because a lot of the top candidates are all defensive guys. I went with something that the Falcons fans probably aren't going to be terribly excited with, but I mean it's just filling a blank, and unfortunately there's 9 teams this cycle. Somebody has to lose. I have them going with Todd Monken. I think they want to stick with offense because they are forcing a marriage with a defensive coordinator who's done a lot of good things there. He's shown that he knows how to utilize his personnel. He's not overly married to a scheme, which is the downfall of Arthur Smith. He cared more about the scheme than making it work. So Todd Monken's just going to be the amoeba type offense. He's going to take in the players he has and he's going to try to turn it into something good. And I think that's a good setup. You got Nielsen on defense, so that's where I'm at with Atlanta.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Anything you were thinking with this one, Zach, about where they might go?
Like Tony said, it makes it very difficult with the fact that they want to stick with their defensive because that's where you could be like, oh, they could bring in somebody like Dan Quinn. They could because there's a bunch of defensive guys that are stacked up that have been waiting for a while. I guess it depends on the direction that they go and what the coach that they bring in. But if Washington doesn't if Washington cleans house, I maybe swing the fences on Bieniemy and see what happens. Because that's a name that I'm very interested to see what happens here because I don't necessarily feel like he should be out at Washington, but if the next coach or the next GM that comes with, Adam Peters is the next GM that came in. But if the next coach that comes in is yeah, no, sorry, I want to bring in my own guys. You're free to go. How long is he going to be in the building? So. And that's not necessarily a bad name. He didn't necessarily do a bad job. He just didn't have the quarterback play to consistently show off because they had their highs. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with him and if he gets another shot to go through another head coaching cycle.
That's an interesting point, because you do think that Bieniemy, unless they hire a defensive mind who happens to want him as the OC, he's going to be out most likely, because probably if they go with an offensive coordinator hired to be a head coach, you're going to be trying to implement their own scheme, and Bieniemy is probably not going to be in that picture. So he's just got to watch. I mean, I think he's going to have a job as a coordinator plus, right? Like whether that's, I don't think a head coach opportunity this cycle, because there's too many guys that are really high up there in the rankings for a lot of people, but he'll land on his feet somewhere for sure, especially with the flashes that they showed before, how kind of creative. For me, this one is complicated a little bit by the Nelson situation, just because I don't know how much or how willing how good this combo would do. But I look at, because I do think Belichick is not going to appear, like you said, Tony. I think they're going to swing and miss on that. I think kind of one of the same page. He's kind of waiting to see if one of these playoff teams maybe want to get rid of somebody. We'll talk about that later. But I actually was looking at Vrabel, maybe. I think they need somebody who can be that CEO, head coach type guy that can run things, can actually run the organization, be the adult in the room that Arthur Smith was clearly not a lot of the time. I think, obviously, the issue with the quarterback is a thing, because you don't know what he's going to do at quarterback, what he's going to want to do there. But I think as long as you get somebody in there to play quarterback that's at least a decent player. We saw what he was able to accomplish with Ryan Tannehill before he fell off. And no, it should not be Ryan Tannehill, by the way. I know people will say that to me.
Vegas would tell you it's going to be Russell Wilson.
Again. But the point is, if you can get competent quarterback play from that group with the weapons they have, and we've seen, Vrabel obviously likes that kind of bell cow running back style, which would be great for Bijan, right? And Tyler Algiers there still too. So I think that would be a really good combo to just get somebody in the room that can be the kind of overseer of the organization. So I really like that fit.
I like that too. The reason I pulled off of that, because I was really thinking hard on that this morning. I'm pretty confident that he's going to bring his really good friend with him as an OC wherever he goes, and I don't know if Atlanta would be willing to take the head coach they just fired and make him the OC on the new staff.
That's part of the problem. That I do think that's something that we could see happen.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to is another team going to be okay with that combo too, and is that something that dissuades people a little bit? Because Smith obviously was very successful as an offensive coordinator, but he's kind of lost a little bit of shine with his Falcons tenure. So we'll see. That is an interesting thing to monitor too, if he brings him with him somewhere. But let's move to the Chargers. Now, I had a different idea about this team going into this exercise, and I did end up going in a different direction than I normally would for this team, I think. But I want to start with you again, Tony. What do you think for this one?
So this is the first one where I have two names. I have the name that I think is probably going to happen, but I also have an alternate universe that I want to explore. So that we're starting to lay the groundwork here. So the name that I have down for real is Jim Harbaugh. I think this has been this has been in the news for a long time, right? It's been said over and over and over that Harbaugh loves Herbert. He has interest in this job. The Chargers want to go all in for him. It could move quickly. There's a dark horse team also interested in Harbaugh, so that's the scenario we're going to explore later. He's a program builder. He loves Herbert. It's a multi-year project with the state of the roster. They're probably going to have to cut all of the old guys and bring in a ton of young guys. Harbaugh can do that shit. Yeah. He can do it well. It'd be an awesome marriage.
I mean, he's a college coach. That's what he's used to.
He's pretty much it'd be like bringing your recruiting class, right? That's what it would be.
The recruiting class of 2024. How wonderful to see you guys.
And he's allowed to scout opponents in live games. He can counter Stallions. You have a job again, sir.
Yeah, there you go.
But the alternative one I wanted to throw out there is that if the other team in the Harbaugh sweepstakes wins, I think they could go Mike Vrabel. I am really high on Mike Vrabel. Similarly, a program builder. Now, the issue with Mike Vrabel is he wasn't on board for a rebuild in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. What's going to make him on board for a rebuild in LA? The quarterback, hopefully.
Yeah. Right.
If he's on board with that, I think it's a rock star hire, because he's going to set a tone, a culture. He's going to get more out of less, which you need with the roster in its current state. And most importantly, they're going to learn how to tackle. I like that idea. I like the Chargers learning how to tackle.
It if you have good management in the front office, I don't think it's a bad thing if you're a head coach and you're not a fan of a rebuild. If you're so focused as I want to win, I think that's a fantastic thing. Personally,
yeah, and like that's why he got kicked out of Tennessee, because they were like, no, it's necessary to kick off a full scale rebuild, and he was like, I don't want to be a part of that.
No. Because I mean, I feel like he thought that there was enough on that team still that he could still.
I think he was wrong, but he definitely thought that.
He thought that for sure.
Now, granted, he was also fighting through some of the worst injury luck of a 2-year span that probably any coach has seen. So
it was
there is that as well.
Years. Yeah. Any other thoughts you wanted to throw out there, Zach, with that?
No, I mean this is a very interesting job opening. It would be interesting to see them go defense twice in a row. However, I think with the prolificness and not having to find the quarterback, they could if Jim Harbaugh doesn't fall through, they could be like, "Hey, Bill, you want to?"
I would love it. I would love it so much. I'd be terrified of it, because I think you could win a Super Bowl with that team. But I
mean,
Bill's a good spot for any like quarterback team, honestly.
And that's the thing. If they have the quarterback already, like, you might be a little concerned. I'm not as concerned with the fact, like, everybody talks about Matt Patricia. Yes, okay, that was a dumb thing. He did that. That was dumb. But then this past year, he had Bill O'Brien. All right, let's not act like
he just didn't have receivers who could run except for the rookie.
Exactly. So. Now, granted, I still hold that if any team wants to bring Bill Belichick in, you have to look at him and be like, hey, we got to talk about this little run of GM thing, and it's not going.
He already said when he was trying to campaign for his job in New England, he said, "I will gladly give up full roster control if the team feels that's right." So
I don't think that's a concern. I don't think
I am, and I'm glad because
he doesn't want to have to do all that at this point, right?
Yes, Bill the coach is amazing. Bill the GM, nah, get him out of there. So I think that Bill Belichick could be a fantastic spot if some of these other opportunities don't fall in the Chargers' lap, because this is not necessarily the job to have. I think right now, I think there's another one that's
there's definitely issues with the
there's one a little north of them that I think that is the job to have.
Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So I'll just give mine pretty quickly here because I don't want to waste too much time on this. I do think the Harbaugh thing is definitely very real, and I think that could totally happen. And in a similar vein, I think the two that I have is around the fact that they already have a quarterback situation settled, and they need to rebuild their defense. I'm normally not a defensive coach guy for a team that has a quarterback like Herbert, who still does need a little bit of coaching up in terms of like trying to be more aggressive and things like that. But I see this as a good spot for two guys in particular. One, Mike McDonald, the Ravens defensive coordinator.
Yep.
This would be an excellent way for him to break into being a head coach with a quarterback already settled, like we talked about, having a defense that does lack a lot of talent right now. Let's just be honest about it. A lot of the guys that were signed to be the talent just haven't lived up to that or are aging. You have a guy that has done a lot with the Ravens defense that, let's be honest, guys, like there's not a lot of true star power. Like you drafted Paul Hamilton,
Clowney and Kyle Van Noy into very plus players this
exactly.
year.
Like you can get a lot of boost from him being your defensive coordinator, I think, in calling plays for the defense while being the head coach of the team as well. So I like that fit a lot. And one that I feel like I will get some pushback on possibly, but I think, again, for a similar reason, the one of the big things that this guy failed at as a head coach was the quarterback being able to evaluate them, putting them in the right place to succeed. Brian Flores. If he wants to break back into it, another guy that can really coach up a defense. We know that if he keeps to his strengths, if he does what he's good at and leaves someone else to do it. Yeah, right. Like again,
that would be so ironic.
It's kind of awesome, right? And it's like,
no, we can't do that. We can't do that because Dolphins Twitter would go absolutely nuts. No, that cannot happen.
Which is exactly why we should.
Yeah, good.
Cannot happen. No, I can't. No, the amount of Tua drama that there already is, I cannot deal with if Flores got Herbert and went off, it's gonna be see what could have been in Miami.
Yeah, I know, and it's like, but again, those people.
I didn't know how bad I wanted this until you just spoke it into existence.
No, yeah, it's great. No, but I do think he would be a good fit though for a team that really needs to rebuild that side of the ball in particular, and I think as long as he makes the right hires around him, which that's always going to be a question. I think it could work pretty well. But let's move on to the Seahawks. I had a thought with this team, and I like my thought. I'm curious if you guys go even in the same general direction, but what do you think, Tony, for the Seahawks?
This is another chalky one for me, and it's similar to the Falcons in that I think it's going to be a little bit awkward to get a real name into the building when Pete Carroll is sitting up in the front office still being involved. Like, an established coach isn't going to want to walk into that and not, like, they're not getting Bill, right? Like, Bill isn't going to be like, oh yeah, Pete Carroll, you're allowed to oversee me from up in the office. Like,
right.
So I think they either need to bring in somebody with absolutely no experience and no leverage, like a Bobby Slowick type. He's not going to be on any of my list. Sorry, Bobby. I think you're a great coach, but you got another year ahead of you. Dan Quinn, he's just, he's from the Pete Carroll tree, right? We know he can work real well with Pete Carroll. Right? He's the Vegas favorite for a reason. It is just, it's easy and it's seamless. And if they're really going to do this Pete Carroll thing, I think it's the only option, other than promoting Shane Waldron or something. Dan Quinn. It's just. It makes sense.
Well, if it's gonna be that difficult, but he's set up for the best, at least of all these jobs for success, because he has the most talent of any team available. And this was the most. Yeah,
the Falcons. I think I've heard people say I think the Falcons have the most talented of these situations.
I think the only issue is like, even though Geno didn't have as good of a year as he had the year before, he's at least a quarterback that you can win with. Right, I think that's an element of things that the Falcons. There's an element of unknown with that.
But I'd like the chance to just go find my superstar quarterback, knowing that I have trash instead of, Geno's always going to be in that.
I think the
range.
Defense is far better, though. I think the defense is much better.
Falcons defense is way better than Seattle.
They definitely had a much better year than Seattle. I think there's obviously a lot of up and coming talent on the Seahawks that you are excited about, but they didn't show it in this first year of those guys being together. So they traded for
Leonard Williams and got worse.
That's a whole other thing. But I think it's a potential argument versus what we saw last year, especially defensively, right? Because defensively, the Falcons were very good. Obviously, there's still pieces that they need to add to that unit, I think, to solidify things. But I think that there's less projection with the Falcons, but there's more potential maybe with the Seahawks roster. I think that might be fair to say. So it's really a take your pick. Like, if you're a new head coach coming into a situation, all that potential is going to be interesting for sure. If you're Dan Quinn, again, it makes sense for like what you said, Tony. I think that he would be the best fit if you don't want to have any clashing with Carroll, right? If he is going to be a big part of things still. I went in a different direction, and I think it's mostly because I want to see them go in this direction now. I went Frank Smith, the Dolphins offensive coordinator. I think that he's a guy that has been talked about so well by that organization, by Mike McDaniel. He has a lot of respect for him and what he brings to the table. And I think he'd be a very good fit for a team that does need to figure things out even more offensively. Like, Waldron I think he did an overall good job with them. But I think that's the direction you want to go after Pete Carroll, because if you try to repeat the defensive, rah-rah guy, I don't know if that's really what you want to do. I think having Carroll over him would actually be kind of good for him, though, because you have all that experience in the building with you. You can help him maybe with some of that element of things and let him just be himself as an offensive guy. That's where I went with that one. So
this is totally unfair to him, but Frank Smith has such a vanilla-ass name that it's hard to get excited about him.
Yeah, it sucks, right?
I understand he's attached to an electric offense and is a very good candidate, but his name is Frank Smith. I do unfortunately hold that
Joe Philbin.
Joe Philbin. At least Philbin's sort of interesting to say, right?
It's multiple syllables.
That's true. Frank Smith does sound like an auto-generated coach on Madden, kind of. No, but I do like that idea, though. But let's get into the Commanders, where I think we kind of talked about it. I think this was maybe pre-show. We kind of mentioned it. We might have the same one here, I think, for all of us, possibly. At least the same idea. But what do you think, Tony?
Ben Johnson, it's all but guaranteed at this point. How cool. Good for you, Drake May. The Commanders knocked this out the park. Finally getting Adam Peters to leave San Francisco because he was being picky as hell over multiple years. They're going to have their pick, and it seems like they're all in on Ben Johnson. So really, really excited for what they're building, and I think they can hit the ground running because of the other, the receiver weapons. I think they're going to be a fun team next year.
Anything you want to throw on there, Zach, or is it kind of the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, kind of same thing. If it doesn't happen, the only thing I could think that could possibly fall in the face of that is if the Lions go one and done, like don't even like win a game, and then somehow Dan Campbell is able to do his most amazing, like, come on guys, just one more try, one more year, we can do it, I know we can, we're right there, and they're like, okay, we got it. And then I think that they should bring in Mike Vrabel then.
Okay. If Ben Johnson not available, I have a second option too.
The biggest thing for Washington here is you have to continue. I think I said it in the chat recently, but Ron Rivera was the perfect person to have there for the turmoil of culture that was going on for the organization, not necessarily for the quality of football. He did a fantastic job of being the anchor and turning things around at the end of the day when things needed to turn around the past 2 seasons, and be the solid, like, this is who we need to be. You need somebody who's going to come in there now and be the culture was great, we have that now it's time to have a football culture, and we need to have like good football mechanics.
Yeah, I totally agree. But so I'll just say Ben Johnson is also my pick for this team. I think it makes a ton of sense. He's the hot candidate. There's a new ownership group. They'll probably be willing to pay him a lot of money to come in, which sounds like he needs to be paid a lot of money if he wants to be a head coach. Sounds like that was something that was kind of said earlier this year, that he wants a lot of money. Fair enough, totally get it. But I think an outside shot. This is kind of in the same vein of Vrabel. What a way to announce your presence to the NFL if you're Josh Harris, to get Bill Belichick in here. Imagine if you could get him to show up and do that. Like, obviously, I don't know if that's the best fit for either side, but I think that would be something that they would maybe be interested in if it became an option, right? They're going to have.
I want it.
Yeah, they're going to have a quarterback that's going to be settled. The receiver's already there. You don't have to worry about that part of it with like you do with Bill usually. Like, and they
get Belichick and keep the enemy. Get Belichick and keep the enemy.
That would be interesting if you want to keep. I don't know. I don't know how that would work, but yeah, I like that idea too. But let's move on to the Raiders here. I'm going to throw this out here. Not selfishly, but kind of like I just want this to happen. I want Antonio Pierce just to keep the job. I do.
Yeah. Who can they afford to feasibly bring in?
Well, that's a whole other question that we don't know the answer to. But that's something too. That's funny. But I would want Antonio Pierce to stay here. And I think this would be. I don't know if this is really the best fit for these two, but I would like to see it for the Raiders' sake. I have Jim Harbaugh as an option here too, possibly. This is where I had Jim.
Is this your dark horse, Tony?
That's where I have him. Is the Raiders? Yeah.
So I agree. We don't know how he would go swinging big game hunting. We don't know how he would afford it.
Right. Got to sell.
There's always money in the banana stand though, and they've already been attached to Harbaugh. So the fact that they're attached tells me that they would somehow be able to make it work. Antonio Pierce, he coached his ass off this year. The players love him. He earned the job. I will say, we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know how he manages, staffing hires. We don't know who he's going to bring in, experienced people. We don't know how he's going to manage when things are slumping. He is a lot of unknown, and the players love him, and he deserves a shot, but he's a lot of unknown. If I were calling the shots, I'm bringing in Jim Harbaugh. I'm trading away Max Crosby because he's going to force that issue. I'm trading away Devontae Adams. I'm stripping it down to the studs and understanding that I am betting on a future with a stud coach. Max Crosby has come out and said he's going to ask for a trade if they don't hire Antonio Pierce. I think trading Max Crosby is the right decision in that. Because how much power are you going to give your players? And it's one thing if it's a rock star hire. It's another thing if it's an unknown that people love. And these are really hard decisions. I
didn't realize that
Davis is going to come away looking like a bad guy if he does this. But I think it's the right decision if they were to go all in on Harbaugh.
Yeah, he definitely did not talk to his agent before he made that statement.
No,
there's no way. There's no way.
He's talking with his heart, which I respect, but also, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Pierce did a great job. I would.
And I 100% agree.
Just for that reason, I'm not saying
if they can't get, which again, I don't understand how they afford Harbaugh, but if they can't get Harbaugh, I don't think there's any other reason not to go with Pierce because I don't know many other people that I'm just okay, yeah. Go ahead and bring them in.
Yeah, especially at that point, if it's not a big name, then just do Pierce. And
especially because it gives you
works out.
You could give him a year or two just to kind of sift through things and allow him to help build this roster up and everything else, then go from there and maybe hire somebody else down the line. But let's move on to the Titans here. Now, unlike you, Tony, I'll just jump in with mine real quick. I expect this guy to get a job from what we've been hearing, so I had to put him in here somewhere. This is where I have Bobby Slowick. Yep. I think it'd be very interesting for the Titans to poach him from the Texans to try to build up an offense around Will Levis, most likely, and at least give that a shot, showed some flashes, try to kind of remake some of that magic that he's made with CJ Stroud. Now, do I expect that to work out the same? No, because I think Stroud has a whole lot to do with it, and it isn't just Slowick out there calling great plays or anything like that, although he has done a great job in the passing game especially. But I could see this happening because, again, you see what he's doing for your division rival. He's a hot name right now because of that. It would make sense to go in a different direction from Vrabel entirely. That would make a lot of sense for them. And I'm sure he'd be more willing as a first-time head coach to kind of go along with what the GM and what everyone's trying to do there as far as rebuilding and kind of pulling things apart. So that's where I'm at with that one.
Yeah, so he is the current Vegas favorite for the Tennessee spot. Although I will say this is the opening with the longest odds as the favorite.
There's
like,
a lot
of
like
plus 250. Like it's just that somebody has to be the top.
Yes.
So I agree that this would be the spot if Slowick gets a job because and I hate that I'm sounding like I'm bagging on Slowick. I am a huge Slowick fan. Started out as a defensive coach, went to PFF to like understand how to weaponize analytics in football, and then returned to the Shanahan scheme and learned to like. I love this guy. I just don't think he's ready. And like
exactly, I think if
he gets a job, it would be here for the reasons you listed because they kind of need a pushover for. It sounds like they kind of want to push over for somebody with little leverage and experience. I went with somebody with little experience, maybe a bit more leverage, and also kind of weird just because of the dynamics of everything. I went with Mike McDonald. This is where the defensive coordinator of the Ravens lands. Okay. I think that he is very similar to Vrabel in that they are defensive coaches who are going to scrape every inch of talent out of everybody on their roster. The difference is, one, I think McDonald's probably willing to do a rebuild, and two, he's like a scheme lord in that he will just take his players and turn it into something. Vrabel's more of I'm going to drill you on the fundamentals and you're going to be fundamentally sound. And so like the difference there is that McDonald's game probably projects better to the long-term NFL the direction things are going. So I'd like that fit, but I definitely see the slow attachment there.
If you can get McDonald, I won't argue with that because that's a big time get for the team that needs the help that they need. But what do you think, Zach?
Oh, all I have to say is a lot of GMs and teams are about to have a phone ringing from Rand Carthon saying, "Hey, so how much can I get for Derrick Henry?"
Nothing now because he's a free agent. So.
Oh, that's right. DeAndre Hopkins, is he a free agent?
No, he has another year on his.
Okay, he has another year.
He's got another year.
Ryan Tannehill. You know, anybody want to take a swing? Like it's gonna be the fire sale.
He's gonna be working the phones for sure. He's definitely working the phones.
It's gonna be it's gonna be a big, and I mean, which good for whoever comes in because they will have a lot of ammo to go and run with. But it's gonna be a lot.
That's the idea. Yeah. Let's get to our last actual opening that we have, and then we can talk a little bit briefly about some surprise potential guys here. Panthers, I'm going to give it back to you, Tony. What do you have for them?
Yeah, the vibes here in Charlotte couldn't
They're
be
not
worse.
Great. They're not awesome.
Nobody has any faith in this owner. They assume he'll get the hire wrong. I've been telling everybody that asks me the question that if I were the one calling the shots, I would hire Mike Vrabel because they need somebody who can beat David Tepper in a dick swinging contest.
That's kind of
apologies for my profanity, but they need some Tepper.
They need somebody who's not afraid to walk into the building and be like, "Hey, shut up! You don't know anything about football. I do."
Yes, exactly. Tepper is an egotistical billionaire who, at a certain point, he just doesn't want to be embarrassed, right? And I assume he has enough ability to reflect and say, maybe I should bring in somebody who knows this shit really well instead of trying to find guys who I can manipulate. So
David Tepper thinks he's Jerry Jones, and Jerry Jones isn't even that good at what he does,
right? So I think Vrabel would be the right hire. I understand it's not an offensive guy for Bryce Young, but who cares? You need a real coach there. You need a real coach. where I think they're going to end up going, because I don't think they're going to get the pick. Their top choice isn't going to accept them, right? Like Ben Johnson turned them down last year. He's going to do it again this year. I have them going Brian Callahan from the Bengals. His name has popped up in a few different interview cycles. He's a well-respected guy. He got a lot out of the Jake Browning version of this team. You saw he really started to have to press buttons, have to try new things. So it's underwhelming, but it's the kind of hire where like they didn't win on any of the big names, but this one, it could actually be a home run swing. Who knows?
Yeah, it's totally possible. Anything you want to add to that one, Zar?
I guess before I say this, I preface this with saying that I don't necessarily consider Jim Harbaugh a college hire, as he has been to a Super Bowl before.
It's a hybrid type of thing for sure.
He's just a football coach.
Yes, I could see Carolina, it's with the Tepper situation, being the one team to be like, oh crap, none of the NFL coordinators or people in the NFL want to take this job. I guess I have to smooth talk a college candidate who wants to make the jump up to the NFL, and that be the hire again, just because of how bad this situation is right now. I don't know.
That's a really good point, because like I think that's another guy who can, step Tepper down, and he can say, yes, I know football, like back off, dude. Like that would be a great one.
I don't know
home run hire for them if they could.
I don't know who the up and coming guys from college would be that are like, oh, I want to make that step up there and try to.
I don't think
he would do it again after the Rule disaster.
I don't think it's the year. I don't think it's the year for that either. I think there's too many guys in the NFL level that are qualified to really go to coaching ranks or college too much. So mine for this one, it's not in the same vein of like, this guy is experienced, obviously, and he does have some hardware to show off. He just got somebody, most likely, or helped get somebody some more hardware too. I would Todd Monken, Ravens offense.
Okay, like it.
He's a guy that obviously, he's very experienced as a coach in general, just not as a head coach. Obviously, hasn't had that opportunity in the NFL, but I think that he would be a good fit to try to help figure this offense out, because we've seen what he can do in different schemes, different players. We obviously saw him just make Lamar probably the league MVP again for the second time. We saw him ride Stetson Bennett at quarterback to 2 national titles in college and made him look real good in college, at least. Like, I think that he would be a good fit on the field and in that room. Whether he would be able to stand up to Tepper the way that some of these other guys maybe could is kind of, you'd have to have that wait and see. But I do see that as a good fit on the field, at least.
Did they ever interview the enemy in the past?
In the past,
I don't know if they did.
I don't know if they were one of the
teams. If they have, that could be somebody to watch out.
Another offensive guy. Yeah. Again, I don't see him as a guy that's going to stand up.
But somebody who's just desperate for a chance, and he doesn't necessarily care about the ownership situation. Be like, hey, it's one of 32. I will take it.
Right. Which, hey, if it comes down to it, maybe they're in that situation and they kind of have to do that.
Which at the end of the day, like, that's what these are. It's like one of the most 32 coveted jobs in the entire league. Like, no, if you have the chance, for some people, it's going to be, I'm taking this.
Yeah, I get that. So I have some potential surprises, and I wanted to focus, and you guys can tell me if there's any other teams you want to throw in this ring. The 2 NFC East teams that are in the playoffs. These are the 2 I'm looking at. That if, let's say, McCarthy either loses to the Packers and is kind of depressingly, like they lose depressingly, or he does his normal like fuck up at the end of the game where like doesn't know how many timeouts or whatever it is, right? Something stupid, and he loses the game. I could see him being out, and I think that Sirianni, if he gets embarrassed in Tampa after the way the season ended, I think it's possible.
That's wild.
That he gets. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to project that necessarily.
Well, it's not even. I don't even think it's projections, because I've heard this.
There has been rumblings around
specific of the Sirianni, and I think it's wild when
they cut ties with what's his face after a Super Bowl, Doug Peterson, after a couple of years after a Super Bowl.
After they realized
a year after. That's what I'm saying. It's a year after they literally
look how different things look without Steichen and Gannon there, though, man. Look at how different it is.
I know.
And it's all about who is out there.
Yes, it is. It matters.
There's a name out there.
Yeah, for me. So with the Cowboys,
it's ironic. Also, I guess the other thing I want to say, it's ironic you say Dallas, because right now in my mind, Dallas is the only team that if they don't put their foot in their mouth, that I feel like can take over and win the NFC. They're the only team I feel like that can compete with San Francisco. if they don't put their foot in their mouth.
I have one more to throw in the ring, but I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, JT's chiming in here. Bulls could be out. That's true.
Yes.
That's a potential one. I don't know.
Bulls and Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen should be fired.
Well, we know
it would have happened by now, right?
Yeah, it would have happened.
That's interesting on Bulls. I was kind of thinking he was safe.
I mean, I don't know if I would project him to be fired if they lost. I think it would matter how they lost because it's a home playoff game, obviously, right? It's against a team that is clearly struggling, and we're going to talk about the games here very shortly. But I could see it, but I don't know. We'll see. But with as far as the the Cowboys go, if McCarthy's out, it's immediately a Belichick spot, right? That's the first thing I think of. You could
say the same thing about the Eagles. Bill Belichick is coaching in the NFC East next year.
That would be in these cases. Now, I would love to see.
Holy crap!
I would love to see, and this would be the case too with Ben Johnson, if he goes into Philly with an already built up offensive roster. And because what is this team missing more than anything else is the scheme, right? It's scheming things up. It's making things happen that Steichen was able to do. Now, there's different offense, different style, but I think he'd have a lot of talent to work with, and I think he could adapt to that, in that way. So I think that's another guy I would throw out there too, because that would be a huge job to get with Philly if it's open. So those are some of the teams I was looking at as potential surprises. But anything you guys want to throw out there too?
Yeah, so I actually like I said in the chat, for a long time I had Dallas as the team that was going to fire their head coach and bring in Bill Belichick in this Google Doc.
Yes.
At the gym earlier today, I had a change of heart because I was really thinking through the playoff matchups and how I expect these playoffs to go, and I flipped it. So my notes I didn't really change though. So in the notes, I changed Dallas to Philadelphia, Bill Belichick.
Right.
One of the NFC East coaches gets fired. Sirianni does have more goodwill right now.
He does.
McCarthy is more likely for a blunder, as we know his playoff history.
Yeah, the Packers, man, we know the history there.
McCarthy has done something this year that I have never seen out of him. He's pressed modern offense buttons in really exciting ways and found really exciting answers. I think he's built up too much goodwill at this point.
That's
on the flip side,
concern, but yeah.
Like we just said, the Eagles are so willing to move off of a coach, regardless of how recently they took them to the Super Bowl, if they see that the direction isn't right. And Bill Belichick's out there. And you know who can stabilize that shit? Fix your defensive problems that lost you a Super Bowl last year and kept you and are probably going to cost you your chance at it this year.
Thanks, Matt.
And then schematically, the offense, I think a lot of people can come in and at least make it work because of all the names in it. So Bill Belichick would be an awesome hire there. And then I do have a fun bonus prediction. It made more sense in Dallas, I think, but in Philadelphia, regardless, I think Saban's going to take on a consultant role in Bill Belichick's staff.
That'd be
just something light, not a real coaching role, but I think Saban's name is going to be attached to the program that Bill Belichick.
He's going to pop in every now and then and be like, "Yeah, so I was watching film the other day, he's
just going to call him up and be like, "Hey,
I found a hole."
Right, exactly. Like that would be interesting for sure. But yeah, that's kind of our thoughts on the coaching carousel right now, guys. We'll obviously get more clarity over the next couple of weeks, probably about a lot of these spots. But
there's no other. I'm trying to think if there's any other people that came into the playoffs. I feel like a lot of people in the AFC probably ended up saving their job if they made the playoffs.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier in the chat, like yesterday, about the potential of a disaster if there's like a disastrous loss for McDermott. But like you said, Tony, I think that they'll just let him kind of run it back after.
Like the general public does not understand how safe that man's job is. It's too safe. I have no desire to move off of him. I don't think you should either. I need to see a full-on losing season, like the trajectory.
Yeah, well, look, like y'all won 6.
They finished the. Yeah,
he is one of the top 5 safest coaches in the league, despite what outside information might tell you.
Exactly.
Ironically, the AFC East going into the end of the season, outside of Bill Belichick, they were all incredibly safe. Nobody had a hot seat, even Robert Saleh, because I don't think they're quite
oddly.
Yeah,
I don't even think it's oddly because like he just the shit luck, man. Like that they had it set up going in. They were ready.
You know another team that traded the house for a quarterback and then lost them and then lost the rest of their roster and then decided to go 11-5 and be the 5 seed in these AFC playoffs. Like yeah, it sucks for him, but do something. Like, don't just lose your season 4 snaps into it and not adjust.
Their mistake was not having a viable
they
backup.
Tried for a really long time. That defense was playing very, very well, and that's where.
Yeah, but he had to make changes on offense if he was a serious person.
That's
you don't let Aaron Rodgers with the torn Achilles hold your offensive coordinator selection hostage. Like.
That's a whole other thing. But my issue with it was that they didn't go into the year with a viable backup because Wilson, although there's a few games in there that he started to show something, he was not even a backup really, right? Like he wasn't prepared to be a backup quarterback because he's a very high variance player. Like you cannot expect anything in particular.
See, I put that on Douglas though. I don't hold that against Saleh.
Well, I'm just saying that's more of a Jets problem than that's a Jets problem more than a Saleh problem. But yeah, it's just. I don't know. It's tough, but let's get into the playoffs, guys. Let's get to the games. So I have my picks. I have my rationale behind them. So I'm curious to see how much we align, how much we don't. But I want to start off. Actually, I want to start with Zach here. We're going to start with the Texans. We're doing this in order. So Texans-Browns game today, 4:30. What do you think about this game? How do you see this one playing out?
I am thrilled for this game because I want to see a passing masterpiece. We are in the NRG Stadium. We have 2 fantastic quarterbacks. CJ Stroud
CJ Stroud, Joe Flacco.
Look, CJ Stroud has had that it was the pick all along. Like somehow the entire NFL except the Texans talked themselves out of it, and they were like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing this. I'm sorry." Like, no, it's Bryce Young, and he was the pick all along. He should be offensive rookie of the year. Who else? There's somebody else that's
Puka.
Oh yeah,
it should be Puka, regardless of how good CJ Stroud.
Here's the problem: it should be Puka just off of like the vibe.
I mean, I understand, but. He was on, but like it's.
You can't go wrong. It's one of those two guys. Yeah, there's valid arguments on both sides.
Yeah. So like it was just an incredible season. The Texans are such a feel good thing, but then also on the other side, it's amazing to see that the Browns are staying relevant even with some of the chaos that they've had over the past couple of seasons. I guess they're going to have to cross their quarterback bridge next season. This is going to be very interesting because Joe Flacco has been a man resurrected. It's going to be a shootout. I honestly can't tell you who's going to win this game because besides the last week that Joe Flacco played, and that's only because they beat the Jets so bad that they ended up just not passing anymore. Like this man will just not stop. Like he is going to pass 40 times a game. He's done it every single game this season except for the Jets game. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to say I want Houston to win is really what I want, but I feel that Cleveland's defense could get the better of inexperience in Houston. So I'm going to say Cleveland 35, Houston 33. Yeah, I want a shootout, baby. This is the game. They're in the dome. They've got the lively offenses. This is the game for the shootout. Yeah, man. And by get the better of, I'm going to say turnovers by that. I'm expecting turnovers in this game.
The shootout thing, I understand because of what we've seen from these offenses throughout the year. But these defenses, man, especially the Browns, I don't know if this is going to get to shootout territory with 2 teams that are healthier than they were last time they played. I know there was 58 combined points. It was 36-22, I think it was, first matchup earlier this year. That was without CJ Stroud, obviously. But I think that these teams, now that they're more what they're supposed to be on both sides of the ball, you're going to see a little bit more of a balanced game. So for me, I do have the Texans winning. I do think that they're going to win this game with CJ Stroud back at quarterback, and especially the defense is healthier than it was when they played them last time. And ultimately, Joe Flacco's playing great. He has that backyard, dad playing quarterback in the backyard with his kids' energy right now, where it's I'm just throwing shit up there. I'm doing whatever I want to do, and it's working out so far. At some point, it's not going to work out anymore. We kind of know this, right? He's not a quarterback that's obviously up and coming. This is a 39-year-old quarterback that, he's doing awesome stuff for them. And he's been the best quarterback for them this year, obviously, right? We kind of know that. I do think that playing them a second time matters too for the Texans, especially because they have Will Anderson Jr. on the field this time. I know he missed last time. I think the pass rush is going to be able to get after Flacco more than it was last time. And I think that they can force enough errors from him to keep this game close and win it at the end. So I have Texans winning 24-21. I think it's going to be closer to something like that. And it's a really cool story for the Browns. I was happy that even as a Steelers fan, I could kind of be happy for them because of who the quarterback is instead of who it was supposed to be. We just have breaking news. The Steelers-Bills are postponed to Monday.
I figured because Monday's the holiday. So, are they doing like a Monday afternoon type thing?
It just says Monday due to weather. New York Governor Kathy Hochul announces. So
that's insane that they're. I mean, I guess because of the snow, but like, damn.
Yeah,
negative 30 wind chill, and they're still going on. All right.
The thing is, you can arrive at the stadium in Kansas City no matter how cold it is. You can't arrive at the stadium in Buffalo.
I understand that, but that doesn't matter when you can't feel your fingers and they fall off after the game. I'm just saying the medical bills from this game are going to be astronomical.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. But I just want to throw that out there. I just saw it come
and that's good news, right? Because the last time a storm this bad hit Buffalo, there were like 12 fatalities because people tried to drive and got trapped in their cars for days. So probably a good move.
Good move.
Glad that the timing of the schedule worked out where Monday is a holiday and most people are off work and they can kind of just seamlessly push the game one day.
Yes.
So my points for Browns Texans. Zach, I agree that it is going to be the quarterback slinging it all over the field in this game. I do not agree that it's going to be a shootout. I think we're going to see high pass attempts, deep pass attempts. I have a note: longest completion over 60 yards. Lock that in. Like one of these teams is completing 60+ yarder. Just bombs away style quarterbacks. Can protection hold up consistently for Stroud to go over the top of that defense? Because we know he can beat a cover 3 style defense. And it's just a matter of protection holding up and giving him the time to launch it deep to Nico. Ultimately, I trust Jim Schwartz to find a way to fluster a rookie quarterback. Regardless of how unflappable CJ Stroud has been this year, I trust Jim Schwartz to cook something ridiculous in this game. I think the Texans D is going to be good, but there's just more ways to beat it. And so when it all comes down, I think experience wins out, and the Browns take this one 24-18. But I expect it to be like a very entertaining watch that feels higher scoring than it actually is.
Yeah, I can see that too. Again, I'm picking the Texans mostly on the fact that I think seeing Joe Flacco for a second time for D'Amico Ryans' defense and having more healthy pass rushers to get after him is going to mean more than the Browns having also their guys back more, and also Stroud is back for them too. Right? I think that kind of helps bridge the gap between these teams. But obviously, I'm not going to be surprised if the Browns win this game. They have been very hot down the stretch for Flacco. Let's move on to Chiefs versus Dolphins, or I guess Dolphins versus Chiefs. It's, again, this is going to be now especially the weather game of the week. You know, it's still probably going to be crappy when there's
going to be snow on the ground, just not falling.
But it's this one could get real interesting for sure with the way that the weather's going to be.
Let's pull it up. I pulled it up multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Also, it's 4:30 is the official kickoff for the Monday game.
That makes sense. Yeah, before the 8:00 Monday game.
Yeah.
Currently on Saturday night, it is projected to be 2 nights. -10.
Yeah. It's going to be cold. It's going to be cold, guys.
According to the National Weather Service. I go to weather.gov. There's no weather.com in here. We go straight to the government.
Straight to the government. Oh boy. All right.
So for success.
Depending on what you do. No. So again, I'll send this over to Tony this time actually because I want to.
Yeah, I trust Noah.
I want to see if I want to let Zach be the last one on this one with it being the Dolphins. So Tony, what do you think about this game?
I think I might surprise y'all with where I'm taking this. I surprised myself.
Okay.
I thought through this a little bit last night with the influence of some other things. A couple cold ones helped out, and then I rethought about it again this morning, a bit more sober at the gym, and I'm really surprised where I landed on this game. So cold weather is a problem for both teams.
Yeah,
I get it. I get the Dolphins are 0-10 in their last whatever, but that's stretching back years. McDaniel was coach for one of those games, and they lost, right? Who cares? That's small sample. It's like the Josh Allen is 0-6 in overtime. Give them more games, and the results will move up. Like, the Dolphins, it's not impossible for them to win in cold weather. It just hasn't happened, and they don't play a lot of cold weather games.
Yeah, they don't get any opportunity.
Kansas City, their offense, their pass catchers. You think Kadarius Toney is capable of catching a pass in the cold? Like, no.
You can't catch a pass in a dome.
So what the weather is going to do is it is going to put an emphasis on fundamentals. Who can catch, who can tackle, right? Like, this isn't going to be a lot of finesse in this game. So the defensive injuries make this really, really hard for Miami because, like, it is going to kind of turn into a ground and pound, like, test your tackling type game, and they're down a lot of bodies. Can Travis Kelce step up? Because he hasn't been doing that. Like, if Travis Kelce is inventing outlets on every single play, then, like, we kind of know which direction this is going to go. Do the Dolphins just really test tackling and funnel short targets to Hill? Do they say, this is Tyreek Hill's first game back in Kansas City, can we funnel him targets in the 5-yard range and just force Kansas City to tackle in the cold? Now, Kansas City's good at tackling. You're testing their strength, but you're testing their strength in a condition that you haven't seen it before. Yeah. The Chiefs' ground game sucks, which is nice because, like, if they were running the ball like they were last year, this would be no contest. But Pacheco can't read, and they haven't done a good job with that offensive line blocking things up correctly. It feels like the game won on explosives. And which team rips off explosives? I could get killed by a Rashee Rice, break a couple tackles, 90-yard run after the catch. But overall, if I'm saying a game is decided on players breaking tackles and making explosives, I'm picking the Dolphins in a game like that. And I didn't think I had any chance of picking the Dolphins when I analyzed this game, but I think they win 26-20 because they can get those explosives, and they are going to be better at testing the tackle.
26-20. Damn, that's going to be some hard-fought 46 points in this weather.
Yeah, I know. It felt a little weird, but, like, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting game, and I was surprised to come out of it thinking the Dolphins would win.
Fair enough. Zach, can you do me a real quick favor on your nice little weather.gov app or whatever you're looking at? What's the wind supposed to be like?
Currently, it is northwest winds of 14 to 18 miles per hour with gusts as high as 29.
That's why we're keeping it short, baby.
Okay. I just was curious about something, but that's okay. All right. So I get where you're coming from, Tony. I really do. I think this game is going to be much closer than people are kind of thinking about it right now because, one, you already saw that the Chiefs beat the Dolphins earlier this year. Now, there's a lot of weird stuff in that game, right? Like
that was also an awful game.
Just weird turnovers, whatever is the whole thing. I do think this game will be much closer than it probably is being perceived, right? Like you said. I do think, though, at the end of the day, the Chiefs being at home, I think that neither team is equipped to play in cold weather, really. Like, especially this type of cold weather, no one really is. But again, I trust the healthier defense against in this type of game, right, where it's going to come down to how well can you handle the cold, how well can you tackle, all that stuff. Like, you're going to have to scheme so much up offensively just to be able to do anything. I'm going to take the guy that I trust as a defensive coordinator and has the roster talent because the Dolphins straight up just don't right now. Let's just be honest about it. It's not their fault. It just sucks with the injuries. I just think this is going to be a very low-scoring game that the defense decides, and I'm going to take the better defense in this case. I'm going to say 17-14. It's going to be a very rough game, I think, for both offenses. But I think they do enough for the Chiefs to just kind of maintain possession, and the Dolphins just have trouble getting those explosives because of the conditions. Right? That's where I'm at with it. But it's going to be very close. I think they cover that -4 spread, though. But Zach, what do you have for us? Obviously, you're the one who has the most to lose or gain in this game. What do you think about this one?
One, I'm thanking the Lord that I don't live in Kansas City because I would be miserable until Wednesday. Because it's literally like 4 or 5 because they go like today, tonight, that night, to the day of the night. It's like 6 in a row that are like either single digits or below 10 degrees or lower. Screw that. Anyways, I like Tony. Look, you can say all you want about the Dolphins not winning last week and not winning the AFC, not being at home. The best outcome, if we want to be honest, for Miami last week was a tie, because then we could have played the Steelers and that would have been the best outcome. So let's not kid ourselves here. Losing and winning.
I'm catching strays. I
would have picked us to win if we had lost last week. Like, I would have felt pretty good about it too.
Yeah. Honestly, let's be real. Yeah. We're going to have to play Buffalo no matter what. I would rather have a chance to play Kansas City and win a freaking playoff game for the first time in my life first. So let's calm down on that one. Secondly, as we've stated here, not saying, and I actually think that with the cold, and we're talking about the biggest thing, Mike McDaniel and Tua had to have done one thing this week and one thing only. It was have one conversation. Hey, it's going to be -10 degrees. We are running the ball 40 times. Put the ball in. I don't know how healthy Mostert is. That is a little asterisk here. He is questionable if he's good to go, but still put the ball in Achane's stomach 40 times and run the ball. You have pretty much, we have Terran Armstead fully healthy, whatever that means for him.
Whatever the
as healthy as he is capable of being.
As healthy as the Super Wildcard weekend of the NFL season is for Terran Armstead. That means no injury designation though. But for the most part, outside of not having Connor Williams and Isaiah Wynn, we have our offensive line. So this is the point where Mike McDaniel, you have this masterful running, rushing attack. You have this masterful offense. I know that the passing attack is going to be awful and not be there, but it's not going to be there for both. So do what you do better. Find a way to scheme up some running plays and run the ball. That is what is going to win this game. If the run is not there, then I completely agree with Shayne that there's just not much that Tua is going to be able to do. And it's nothing against them. It's that this weather is just absolutely awful, and they are now asking David Long Jr., Duke Riley, Melvin Ingram, Bruce Irvin, Justin Houston, Channing Tindall, and Calvin Munson and Emmanuel Ogbah to stop the Chiefs offense. There could be worse groups, but you also just signed 3 of them onto your active roster this week. So
yeah,
I want to be hopeful. I want to be sitting here next week and be like, hey, Tony, let's see what happens with Buffalo. Let's what's going to happen. But I'm not like 100%.
I sort of just caught another stray just now. I just didn't even realize.
You did. You caught straight.
Jesus Christ.
Although there's no path for the Dolphins and Bills to play each other next week.
So
it would have to happen in the AFC Championship game.
Oh, okay.
That's right. That's true.
Who would we play next week?
You unless the Steelers win, you would be going to Baltimore.
Is that going to change anything for Zach? Do you want to just call it quits now?
If the Dolphins win, their options are Baltimore or the winner of the 4-5 game.
I'll play Baltimore again. Okay. We'll have a much healthier team.
We'll have a much healthier team.
Yeah, well, on offense, anyways. We were missing some key pieces on offense.
That's true. That's true. Okay.
So yeah. I desperately want Miami to win. However, how many times do you guys see me pick Miami on this show? So I'm going to pick Kansas City 20-17. I'm hoping for the best. I'm not imagining the best. And if they win, that means, hey, I got it wrong, but my team is still in next week. So
I did a fun little thing because I noticed the score lent itself to it. I just threw the OT tag on this game because 26-20. I was like, oh yeah, that works.
I totally thought that the Dolphins had gone down and scored a touchdown and Jason Sanders missed the extra point, and then we were just praying that the Chiefs didn't score a touchdown, because that would be true Dolphins fashion.
That would also be funny.
That would be true Dolphins fashion, is praying to God the other team doesn't score or get to the point where you need them to score for the final time. That's how we win all our games.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, in the interest of chronological order, do we want to skip the game that's next on all of our lists and push it?
Yes, we're gonna do Cowboys and Packers, then Rams and Lions, and then Steelers, Bills. All right, so we're going to move to the again Cowboys Packers versus Cowboys. So I'm just going to let you guys know right away. I'm not going to go first here, but it took everything I had not to do a certain thing with this prediction. Yep. So I'm just going to. I think we all know what that is. We're just going to move with it. Tony, what do you have for this game?
It's super fun game, right? Like,
yes, I think this could be very fun.
I think anything is on the table in this game, other than like Packers blowing them out. I think any result other than a Packers win in a blowout is on the table. LaFleur has been in his bag this year. I predicted them to win the division going into the season, right? And I still feel vindicated. I got that wrong, but I feel vindicated about how high I was on the Packers going into the season. Yeah. So LaFleur is going to scheme up the perfect game plan, right? He's going to break all, he's just going to make sure that that their protection rules make sense. He's going to make sure that they have chances to throw it over the top. He's going to make sure the run game has consistency. He's going to scheme it up perfect. Will that be enough? I don't know. Dallas offense will carve.
Joe Barry's out of his league in this one, man.
Joe Barry made Bryce Young have his best game. He made Tommy DeVito have his best game. He is the defensive coordinator you want to play against if you are in a contract year. Put it that way.
Yeah, Joe Barry is a quarterback's favorite defensive coordinator. Let's put it that way.
Yes. So they're going to carve it up, specifically in the passing game, because their run game I don't think is all that good. And honestly, the Packers' run D can kind of win. Now, if the deep ball hits, the Packers are very live. And I think the deep ball hits, right? Like, they've got their tight ends healthy. That now that they're going to both be on the field. They're going to condense things. They're going to rip it deep like Jordan loves to do. Jaden Reed going to be very important in this game. Dontavian Wicks going to be very important in this game. Parsons, though, LaFleur is going to do everything right to address Micah Parsons, but what does that take away from elsewhere? It's the kind of defense where, even if you get it right, you can be wrong, and I see that happening. I said earlier in the show, I kind of see Dallas having similar to you, Zach. I think they're one of the teams that can really wreak havoc in the NFC because they are worthy. So I have the Cowboys coming out on top, 31-24, hitting the spread pretty much on the dot. I think it's going to be a very, very fun game, though.
Yeah, I like a lot of what you said, and it's part of what I'm thinking for sure. But what do you think, Zach, for this one? I want to see what you think here.
Yeah. So again, so a little analogy here. I feel like if Dallas does not, this is all prefaced by if Dallas does not shoot themselves in the foot, because as we know, this can happen. I think that the Green Bay Packers are to the Washington at the time football team as the Dallas Cowboys are to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2020. This is the game that if the Dallas Cowboys get through, they could potentially cruise straight to the Super Bowl and win. Maybe not necessarily win, because taking on the AFC is going to be very difficult. As we have seen, as the AFC has pretty much taken down every single top NFC team.
That's true.
Yeah. But this is the game where the Packers can press all the right buttons to test Dallas at the spots where they're weak. If Dallas can get through this and not have some sort of absolute monumental failure, it's only up from here. This is their toughest challenge. And if they, as we talked about beforehand, there's a lot of goodwill that has come, but depending on how they lose this game, if they do lose, this could be it for Mike McCarthy in Dallas, and could be the opening for Bill Belichick in either. I mean, granted, man, imagine the bidding war between Dallas and Philadelphia.
That price tag would get real hefty real quick. $25 million head coach right there.
Although I think Jerry Jones would do whatever it takes.
Yeah. So ultimately, I'm using a little bit of precedent here, and it's why I'm not actually going to ultimately pick this, but it's just so hard not to pick it. I'm going to say three things, right? The catch, Jared Cook, Aaron Rodgers. Okay. Now, none of the people involved in any of the things I just said about are currently playing for the Packers, right? Or involved with the Cowboys. But there's so much precedent in recent history, okay, of this team for some reason having the Cowboys number. That doesn't mean anything technically right now, but it makes it really hard when you look at how hot the Packers are right now. When you look at the way Jordan Love is playing, he is absolutely on fire. as a quarterback right now. And I feel very vindicated about what I thought about him in 2020. It took a few years. Thank you, Aaron Rodgers. But I feel very vindicated about how I feel about him. And I think that they certainly have the ability to go to Dallas and give them a game, and I think they will. But I'm not going to pick them because I think specifically, one, Joe Barry is a coach for the Packers, makes it really hard right off the bat. And I think McCarthy, to his credit, and we talked about earlier, Tony, the thing he's done this year that we hadn't seen from him since he made his return back to the NFL with the Cowboys is he actually did something. He provided value in some way that was tangible. His ability to call plays this year, what he's done to modernize the offense, like you said, allowed Dak to have his best season, arguably, most likely his best season, realistically.
Oh, yeah.
He was
a rightful all-pro
MVP
second team selection.
Exactly, right. Like, that alone gives me reason to think that this is going to be a little bit different, where maybe there's still some blunders. Maybe the clock management and the decisions at the end of the game are still a little bit weird. But I think his offense is now much less susceptible to the dud in the playoff than it was the last couple of years. And that is why I'm ultimately still going to pick them. I'm going to say 30-24. I think that they just barely kind of keep that spread of, I think it's 7 right now, right?
7.5 maybe.
7.5, something like that. I think they can keep it close, but I think ultimately Joe Barry will let the Packers down, and I think that McCarthy won't do enough wrong to get upset in the situation. So, any other thoughts on that game before we move on? All right, cool.
It's weird that the first game on Sunday is going to be the 4:25 game, though. That sucks.
Well, dude, it's literally the exact same schedule all 3 days. Mm-hmm. It's 4:38, 4:38, 4:38, 15.
That is true. It's pretty much identical. That is kind of cool. Next one.
Now it'll be interesting to see. That means that should mean that that either the winner of Pittsburgh and Buffalo and the winner of Philadelphia and Tampa Bay might have to be scheduled on Sunday, which means that those two teams are going to be locked into playing that day, which opens up like specific possibilities there. I mean, like you can almost already like
kind of know what
parse out the schedule once people start winning.
Yeah, so well, that'll be interesting to see too. Yeah, we'll see.
Because if they schedule one of those teams on Saturday, there will be hell.
Boy, that'll be bad.
I don't think they'd be afraid to do it, but there would be a lot of outrage.
Yeah, they'd be like, "What the hell?"
Because at that point, what stops them from doing a Thursday game the first week? Because that
the calendar year, isn't there already one guaranteed for next year?
I think so.
For Super Bowl for Super Wildcard weekend next year.
Yeah, I could be completely wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that there is a Thursday night football game locked into Super Wildcard weekend next year.
There's too many.
Say that 5 times fast. I couldn't even say it once.
Wildcard.
Could be completely wrong on that. Could be inventing that right now, but I feel like I heard that somewhere.
I could honestly see them taking the third game from Sunday, putting a game on Thursday, a game on Saturday, or put 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday, 1 game on Monday.
Would that make it super duper wild card weekend? Is that what we call it?
Super duper wild card weekend.
Is that what
I hate the super already.
Super deluxe wild card weekend.
The deluxe with cheese wild card weekend. No. Anyway, moving on to
everybody's favorite revenge game for both sides.
Yeah, again, is it revenge really? It's hard to. I don't know how to.
I feel like it's only revenge.
For golf,
it's only revenge one way.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Already got it.
Yeah, revenge game, homecoming game. That's the dynamic.
Yeah. So Rams go to the Lions, and I was so hyped for this matchup once it was official that it was happening, because I really like what the Lions have done overall. I really think that they're a strong team. But the Rams, man, something about the Rams this year, and Stafford coming home. I know which way I'm going, so I'm going to let myself be last here again. So I'm going to send Zach.
I kind of make it feels like I already know which way you're going.
We'll see. Go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
Wasn't very sneaky there.
No, I'm trying to be sneaky. I know.
No, okay. So this is a very fun game. And yeah, let's make this clear from the get-go. This is a revenge game for one man and one man only. Jared Goff.
Jared Goofball.
If you want to say that this is a revenge game for Matthew Stafford had his pick of where he could be traded to, and who he could be traded for and what he could be traded for, because he was picking the team, he got sent to his preferred destination. They plucked a quarterback from a random team, Jared Goff, because he was supposed to be the sloppy seconds, and look where they are now. So no, this is a revenge game for one man and one man only, Jared Goff. And with that, I have loved what Detroit has done over the past couple of weeks. They are on fire. I don't. They got jobbed by the refs in that one, and with that one call, they should have had that win. So I'm not even going to count that against them. The best part is, I think the biggest advantage they have is how savage and just like ready to go Dan Campbell is. For at any point, at sometimes it can bite them in the butt, but at the end of the day,
I think you mean bite them in the kneecaps, Zach. Come on, like let's
bite them. It can't bite them in the kneecaps, but at the end of the day, the aggressive approach with how they play they kind of complements itself perfectly. Because when Jared Goff is at his best, they're not turning the ball over. They're playing very safe football, and that gives them that gives Dan Campbell the afforded ability to make those extra splashes of like, yeah, no, we're going for it on fourth. Might as well. Who cares? So I really think Detroit as overall is in a better spot than Los Angeles right now. I want them to win this game. I desperately want to see them go far in the playoffs. It's been so long. I'm going to pick Detroit to win. I really hope it doesn't come back to bite me in the butt. But hey, they finished out their season and won their division, so I have hope for them.
What do you think, Tony?
So, I, like Zach, really want Detroit to win this game. I have many Lions fans in my life. My girlfriend's a Lions fan. All of my friends from college are Lions fans because I went to school up in Michigan State. Important there. I don't have much to be celebrating these days. But
Jane Reed. No.
I said on the show last week something that I have believed for the past few weeks and that I am unwavering in, and that is I will not pick against Stafford until he plays the 49ers. Now, because they're the 7th seed, I don't have to wait long to see that. But
they'd be the 6th seed.
I'm not picking
right now. So unless the Packers win.
No.
Yeah, Packers are 7.
Yes, you're right. Okay.
But again, that would require the Packers to win for it to matter. But yeah.
Yep. Okay, I had that backwards, but chances are that that's going to happen next week. But regardless, I am not going to pick against Stafford. Congrats, Jeff. Why?
Yeah, that's
cool, dude. Congrats. Enjoy your one season of Jim Harbaugh winning your national championship and then leaving to the NFL. So back to this. I just think that Stafford is cooking with gas every single game. I know his stat lines aren't showing it all the way, but like what he is doing is incredible football. And I don't think that can be beat when you have the healthy weapons. Kyron Williams, Lions run D is good. That just means that they're going to keep him into pass block, and he's one of the best pass blocking running backs in the league. And then how are you covering Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, and hell, even Demarcus Robinson is balling out. This offense is firing, and then you got Kobe Turner and you got Byron Young, rookies on that defensive line, both very high sack totals, both defensive rookie of the year candidates. They're not going to win, but they're candidates. No. They are doing exciting stuff. They are going to allow points, but I think they can score more points than the Lions. The Lions, on the other hand, they're going to get theirs. Just like I said, they're going to be able to do stuff to this defense. I am worried about what this offense looks like without tight end health. James Mitchell is out. Sam Laporta is probably going to gut it out, but we all know he's not at 100%. And how much does that make the rails fall off of this thing? And how much does that make Goff just a sliver more uncomfortable? And what happens when that happens? McVay knows Goff better than most people, basically better than anybody outside of Detroit at this point. And so he's going to know what buttons to tell Raheem Morris to press. I worry for the Lions. This is a tough matchup. I wish they got anybody else because I do want them to go far, but I just trust the Rams to find points. So Rams 38-34. I'm sorry to all the Lioning this game. I'm not picking against Stafford.
Yeah, man, this is the disaster matchup for the Lions, in my opinion. This was the potential matchup that I was looking at. That if they get it, it's just hard because let's look at this as well. Like you talked a lot about, so I'm not going to try to rehash everything. Kobe Turner and Aaron Donald in the interior for offensive line that is a very good group, but they're weakest at where? Guard. That's a problem for me in this matchup, right? Because Goff, when he's under pressure, he's better than he was in Los Angeles for sure. Like he's a better player in those situations than he was in LA because he was dreadful in LA in those situations. But he's still not good under pressure. He's just not the type of quarterback. He's not the athlete that can make plays, play extension. He just doesn't do that stuff, right? That's just not part of his game. You have all the weapons for the Rams healthy. That is a huge part of this too, because if you miss a Cooper Kupp, if you miss a Kyren Williams, if you miss a Puka, right? Any of those guys are out, it does make it a little bit harder for them to scheme up everything they want to do. Even though DeMarcus Robinson, you shouted out Tony, is playing really well. They have other guys, but like a full complement of weapons for a healthy Matthew Stafford with this team, even with the defensive inexperience, and they're going to allow some points, like you said. I just have a hard time seeing this Lions defense stopping them. I really just have a hard time seeing it. I think that, like you said, the Lions will get theirs, but I have weirdly more faith in a very young Rams defense to get some stops than I do right now for the Lions defense to get stops on this Rams offense, the one that we're probably going to see with the healthy group of weapons. So I have 31-28, a little bit less high scoring, but I have another game that's going to be close. I think the Lions are going to be in it, of course. I'm not going to say they're going to get blown out or anything crazy. But I have a feeling the homecoming is going to be the big story and not the revenge game, unfortunately, for Jared Goff. So that's what I have.
No punts. That's my prediction. No punts.
Oh, no punts would be awesome.
Just cook that up right now.
Yeah, I don't want to see any punts either. That'd be awesome. But no, so last two games here start with the now early Monday game. Opposed to the only Monday game would have been Buccaneers-Eagles. Bills and Steelers. I'll go first, I feel like, Tony. Yeah. Let's just get out of the way. I'm not picking.
Wait, shouldn't I go first?
Yeah, Zach. Actually,
yeah, no, that's way better. That's way.
Yeah. What am I?
All right. Unfortunately for Pittsburgh, the timing could not be worse. Because
I don't even know if timing is the worst part of this. But
no, TJ Watt not being available.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, that's more
pretty darn bad. If there was if there was ever a chance. Like that was the chance, is to have TJ Watt going up the middle and wreaking havoc. I after last year, I can't say that there's no chance, because I could have told you there was zero chance last year, and then freaking Skylar Thompson cooked up a masterpiece. But this is also not nearly the same Bills team that they played last year. And look, Buffalo is on one right now. They are surging. They are riding. The offense is looking fantastic under Josh Allen. They are the rushing. I mean, they're doing great. They've gotten the rushing attack going. James Cook looks great. That has been fantastic to see. So it's been awesome to see little Mason Rudolph come in and do a little 3-game fun. Like, oh, hey, look at me. I'm still around. But I just don't. I can't see them outscoring Buffalo, especially when Buffalo, but the Bills are on the verge of being out, and they fought this back. I can't see them, and then this is no offense to you, Shayne, I can't see them pulling like giving it up against one of the worst offenses in the league this season.
Yeah,
without TJ Watt.
So that's the thing, right? Is like I think that. TJ matters about as much to the Steelers as any non-quarterback matters to any other team in the NFL, right? That's been shown. There's been 11 games since he got in the league, since he's missed since he's got in the league. Well, with the Steelers, we were 1-10 in those games.
I think arguably he's more important than Tyreek Hill is to the Dolphins.
It depends on who you ask and who's healthy for the Dolphins too. I think matters there too. Obviously, if Waddle's healthy, that helps out. But in general, they have not done well at all defensively in any metric with him off the field since he got in the league. Like they're in the bottom of points allowed, sacks forced, like just everything you can imagine they are near the bottom of. And when he plays, they're in the middle or better. Like that, that's just how it is, right? So that really matters. Now I will say this is the most prepared they've been for a TJ injury while he's been on the team, right? I love Nick Herbig, what he's shown in short stints. I think he has the juice as a pass rusher. I think he's going to have an impact. I think Marcus Golden is a really nice veteran to kind of be the more stout guy on the edge that can help with some of the run defense stuff. I think they're prepared to get more out of that group than they would have been in years past, which helps. But ultimately, there's a reason why they are 10-point underdogs, right? These are teams are on different levels, ultimately. Offensively, defensively, pretty much every level, there's just a difference between these teams. Now, I will say, depending on how different the weather is on Monday versus Sunday, it is a great equalizer, as you have in your headline there, Tony. I think it makes it harder for any team, no matter how much they are favored, to actually blow another team out in that type of situation, right? And I think the game could end up being closer than that 10-point spread suggests it should be. But ultimately, if a play needs to be made to win this game, I'm going to take Josh Allen and the Bills offense to make that play, even in the weather, against the Steelers offense making that play. I'm very realistic about Mason Rudolph. I think it's been great. I think that it's good for him. I think he's going to have a long career now as a backup, if nothing else. He might end up being the starter for this team next year because that'd be crazy. They'd be crazy enough to do it. I don't want to see that, but I can see it happening, unfortunately.
Quarterback competition between Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett.
That's actually there is no competition. Kenny Pickett is healthy and not starting a playoff game. They have told Kenny Pickett. I bet I wouldn't be surprised if he gets traded this offseason. Nobody has been benched harder than Kenny Pickett has been benched this year.
Mac Jones.
And it sucks for him because he had his best game of his career the week before he got hurt, honestly. And I'm kind of disappointed by it. Not that I think he was going to turn out into anything special.
All I'm going to say is at least Kenny Pickett got benched with an injury. Mac Jones got benched twice without one.
Yeah, that was the But no, my point being is that I think this game will be closer than it should be under normal circumstances. But I cannot, with any sort of realistic confidence, suggest that the Bills are going to lose this game, right? I think it's going to be pretty low scoring overall. I think the score that I gave in my most recent podcast that I did was 20-14 Bills. I had that as 20-14. Is that your score, Tony?
It was until Zach dropped the news that the game got moved.
Right. I have 20-14. I think that it's going to still be kind of like a slugfest type of thing. I could see Allen just because it's what he does sometimes, giving us a few, maybe have a couple turnovers, but it won't matter because they're just better still ultimately. I think I actually said this specifically. The only way the Steelers can win this game is if they win the turnover battle by 3 or more. If they win it by 3 or more, they have a shot if they actually do good on they actually make good on those turnovers. But a lot of them are probably going to be like in the end zone or close to it.
You got to do that early season. The defense is scoring more points than the offense.
Yes, they need the Browns week 2 game to happen basically, and the defense scores like twice. So and I'm not predicting that obviously. So I'll say 20-14 Bills.
I had to make some changes after I found out about the game moving because like my little thing there says weather equalizes. Maybe I can point. Nope, that's the wrong finger.
Well, the weather's not going to be there to equalize.
So my thought process when I thought that the game was going to be played at 1:00 in a snow globe game. Steelers are super live. It's an absurd line. It would still be an absurd line even without the weather now.
Yeah.
Conditions are awesome for TV, bad for the Bills. Not only does it equalize, but it accentuates the Steelers' strengths and kind of the Bills' weaknesses. The Steelers would just lean on the run game if it were a real snow game, and they just Najee Harris for 5.5 a pop, and then just hope for an explosive, and
pretty much.
Now, my thought process is changing. You're seeing this happen live. I haven't had a chance to think about this game 4:30 in neutral weather, right? So what I did is I added 8 points to the Bills. I went from 20-14 to 28-14 because I assumed that the weather was going to really pull the Bills offense down. And now knowing that Josh can pass it over the top, things look different to me. I think that the week 1 game in 2021 where the Steelers won 23-16 because they forced Josh to malfunction, that is the Steelers' path to victory. That is perfectly in play. It was a Minkah Fitzpatrick masterclass. It's something they can replicate even without TJ Watt on the field. I think that's in play. I also think last year's 38-3 game is perfectly in play.
That's kind of the issue, right?
So there's the range of outcomes, right? Steelers could win by muddying it up, and the Bills could blow them out, and anywhere in between. Steelers' run defense is really strong, so if weather remains a factor, the Bills won't have that easy button that they've developed to lean on. And their run offense is a strength. So like they like I said, Najee for 5.5 a pop, I think is on the table if it's a weather game. Can the Steelers get a bucket over top of Dane Jackson? Now, I had Dane Jackson in there because I expected Rasul Douglas to be inactive. You give him an extra day on that questionable tag, I now think Rasul Douglas plays.
He might be out there.
Same thing with the run defense. Tyrell Dodson was probably going to be out. I now think he plays. I don't agree with PFF that he's the top-graded linebacker in the league, but he's a pretty damn good run fitter.
Quan Jones from back is huge as well.
Yeah. So like he's back. There's no question marks there. I'm super excited. That is so necessary, so important.
It's huge.
So Bills are much better, but it's just going to come down to who the safer QB is. Now Mason Rudolph, I think I have been predicting his malfunction for a while now. I expect the bottom to fall out. I expect him to throw some terrible passes and get intercepted, and I expect those to come in waves. So that could happen. But Josh can do the same thing. And like you said, he probably needs to stack up more turnovers for it to really matter because he can offset them with positives.
Yes.
But if he starts to stack up 3-4 turnovers, then we're talking. Ultimately, though, like you said, I expect Josh to reel it in. I think that
at least enough. I don't think it's going to be like catastrophic.
And the cool thing that developed that they haven't had in past seasons is that, or I guess in past seasons, but they haven't had this season, is that complementary football piece where like the reason we were losing early games in the season or mid-season is because Josh was turning it over and the defense was letting Mac Jones drive 90 yards on him. And when those two things happen in congruency, you can't win football games because nobody's bailing you out, and Josh isn't getting the ball back to bail himself out. But now the defense is stepping up, bailing them out, forcing turnovers or just stops and bailing them out. Sean McDermott is coaching his goddamn ass off in terms of defensive play calling. Most fun Bills defense I've ever seen, including the Rex Ryan years where we were setting league records in sacks. Like, this is fun-ass defense to watch. Their punt return unit apparently can snap off for a touchdown. Didn't see that coming. So I just think the Bills have too many answers.
And now I'm catching strays.
Sorry. Because the game got moved, I feel even more confident that it's more of an easy victory, but like we're not sweating
it's easier
the middle of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's easier to project it to be pretty comfortable versus more of a slugfest. Yeah.
Like I said, I originally had 20-14 in the prediction. Real close game, comes down to a single explosive, basically. Now I expect 28-14, knowing that weather is going to be less of a factor. But I love the matchup because they are just such high variance teams, and like the Bills want to play a way that the Steelers don't, and the Steelers want to play a way the Bills don't, and it's just like who can instill their style of football and make this game ugly or fast, basically.
Yeah, and something I have to mention now, it's going to be more likely than it was now that the game has moved, but it's still probably unlikely just because it's hard to keep doing this. But the Steelers have the most 70-plus yard touchdown passes in the NFL. Pickens. He could go at any moment.
That's what I said. Can they get a bucket over top Dane Jackson? Like, Pickens,
I don't know if
90-yarders on the table.
Over top, because like a lot of them have been on just slant routes that just break open because teams aren't ready for them to throw over the middle of the field. Like, I'm sure McDermott is going to be better prepared for that because they put it on tape a couple times now. But it's funny. But no, I totally agree with you on the outcome ultimately. Let's get into our last game here under the wire before everybody has to get going. So, Buccaneers, Eagles, man. So one thing we have to throw out there right away is that AJ Brown will not be playing in this game. We found out, and boy, does that suck. If you're the Eagles, that sucks a whole lot. I don't know how much it would have honestly mattered in my prediction ultimately because I'm kind of I decided I was on this train like immediately, and I'm just going to stay on it. But let's go to Tony here first though for this one.
So we joked about this in the chat. My first bullet point is just holy shit, Philadelphia.
Yeah, sucks, man.
What a collapse, like, of vibes, of hope, of just general sentiment around the quarterback, around the coach, around the everything. It just what a fall. They can turn it all back around. I just don't expect them to. So the injuries are devastating, right? Devonta Smith has been banged up. He's not 100%. He's probably going to play, but he's not 100%. AJ Brown is not going to play. The last, so I guess I haven't checked today. The last time Jalen Hurts threw a football before today? It was at MetLife Stadium.
Yeah.
He said that he has not yet thrown a football because of his really, really grossly broken middle finger on his throwing hand.
That shit sucks, man.
they can win, but I don't feel good about any path I can create to see that. Like the one thing they can do, and the one thing they did against the Bucks earlier this year, I think. Earlier this year,
close.
It's just just running the damn ball. They can do that, and like if they take the Bills game plan from the Cowboys, where they just realized, oh shit, we're just running it every play and it's working, we're not going to stop doing that. If they do the part of not stop doing that, they'll be just fine. But Brian Johnson as a play caller has consistently found answers and gone away from them because he just, like, I don't know, maybe it's a desire to mix it up and not just keep pressing the same button, but do the boring thing that works. And like, so if they run it a bunch of times, they'll be fine. I don't think they're going to because Brian Johnson gets bored with that shit. The Bucks aren't an inspiring team either. They beat the Panthers 9-0 in a win and you're in playoff game. Like the other side of the game is really beneficial to Philadelphia here because if it were a real team, we'd be talking blowout territory. But we do know that Bulls can scheme it up, and we know that Bulls can beat Jalen Hurts specifically. Remember that playoff game a couple of years ago? Now, granted, this was a different version of Jalen Hurts.
A much different version, but still.
Yeah. All of those sim pressures, all of the same answers can work.
This year especially,
Yeah, he has a better chance of surviving against those, but those things still work against him. So it really comes down to, do the Eagles recognize that their strength is running the damn ball, and do they attack that? I think that they find a way to screw it up, and I think that the Buccaneers can just bomb it over the top. Just keep chucking it up to Mike Evans and hope for the best. So Buccaneers 28-23. I think this is a terrible, terrible, sad end to Philadelphia's season. Like I predicted earlier, I think that opens the door for Bill Belichick to come in and save the day. But and the reason that I don't think Mike McCarthy gets fired is because the scenario this would create, and I think, Zach, you were kind of hinting at this earlier, is the Buccaneers going to Dallas, meaning that Dallas is going to the NFC Championship game for the first time in 20-plus years. And so, like, the cascading effects of this game are really interesting on the state of the entire NFC.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think, Zach, for this one?
Yeah, this is a very, very, very interesting game. Just because of how, like Tony said, how bad things have gotten in Philadelphia, which is insane for a team that was
at the top of the world
Super Bowl last year. Do you know what I would give to be in the Super, not win, be in the Super, win a playoff game? Oh man, that would be amazing. But it just goes to show how, like the standard that some of these organizations and these franchises have, and you can see the fruits of the labor, or sometimes, you know, if it's a bit too impatient like Carolina, the absolute failure of what can happen. It is very interesting that everything has fallen out with both of the coordinators getting poached, and I think that might be something for a lot of coaches to look out at and be like, hey, I got to make sure that maybe I'm a bit in on one side, so that way if both of them leave, I'm not just screwed. So this is going to be a very interesting game. This is Sirianni's chance to show that yes, he is the guy. I'm the one that this is time to let your flowers blossom. Wasn't he the one that grow your grass or whatever?
Something, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Gotta love some good old coach speak.
Whatever it was. Let your grass grow, flower blossoms, whatever.
The standard is the standard, you know.
Yeah, get it.
Chill, Tomlin. He's not quite at that level yet.
No. Tomlin's got his. I know coach speak as well as anybody.
So it'll just be very interesting. I mean, they do have a defensive rookie of the year candidate. It's just like they have all of the talent, and as we said, missing or having AJ Brown out and Devonta Smith banged up is obviously very, very rough. But you also have the capability of having one of the best rushing attacks in the entire league. Use it. Use what's his name? DeAndre Swift. Use Jalen Hurts. Figure it out. You're not necessarily going up against the cream of the crop. You're going up against the winner of the NFC South. Like, come on.
Yeah. So I'll try to keep this relatively brief because I know Tony's got to get out of here soon. We'll wrap things up. Here's what I kind of feel about the Eagles right now is I would go to Nick Sirianni and I'd be like, what do you do? Like, what do you?
What
like,
is it you say you do here?
Like, what do you do here? Like, what's like? We were in the Super Bowl last year, and we started 10-1, and then you just were like, well, I don't know, man. Matt Patricia looks like a good option for defensive coordinator right now. Like, what do you do here? Because if they lose this game, which I'm going to project that they do, I have, just so we know, the Buccaneers winning 24-21. That's my score prediction. I think you have to look at yourself. If you're Sirianni, if you keep your job and go, okay, what can I do to right this ship? Because right now this is not working, what I'm currently trying to do. And if you're the ownership of the Eagles, you have to look again, ask yourself, what does Nick Sirianni do? Like, what does he do? I don't know what he does at this point, except like irritate other fan bases after they win and say weird stuff and like
and be weirdly like posturing all the time. Like, he's a problem with everybody.
I don't know. He's got stuff going on. Point is, I do think the Eagles are in trouble as a franchise at this current moment in time. I think there's a crossroads that they could be reaching if they lose this game, especially. Even if they win this game, they squeak it out. Like, if they lose the next week, right? I still think the same thing kind of applies because the NFC South winner, like, yeah, if you beat them, that's great. Like, you did your job. But
congratulations!
Oh, yeah, great.
Barely was able to get a winning record.
Baker Mayfield, like, nothing against Baker, he's been good this year, but like, it won't feel like a victory in the way that the Eagles are looking for victories, right? Like, they don't care about beating the Buccaneers in the wild card round. Like, they care about winning Super Bowls at this point, right? Like, that's what they should be trying to do. And I think, like you said, Tony, it could be a Belichick situation if that happens. There's a lot of things could happen with the coaching spot, but ultimately, I will say, like I said, the Buccaneers, I think they'll take the Eagles down in this game, in the home playoff game, and then after that, they're just playing with house money, right? Like, that at that point, good for them, whatever they do from there. But I can't imagine a whole lot else.
And I mean, it's also, I guess I would say, it's not necessarily fair to expect a team just because they went to the Super Bowl a year before to return. That is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen all that often. And I guess that's the point that needs to be made. It's not just that that if they lose, they're not returning to the Super Bowl. It's if they lose, they had this wrapped up in a bow. It's the
way the season ended.
And they are now the wild card, could be going home in the first round to the winner of the NFC South.
Yes. It's about how they lose if they lose.
It's how everything compounds at the end of the day, and you're like, man.
Yeah, the teams they lost to down the stretch to give up the division. Like,
that's another, again, it all factors.
Yeah, they did lose to Arizona. Yeah, that's right.
Hey,
of course, Dallas did too, but at least they won enough of the other ones.
I can't say anything about Arizona at this point, but my point, though, too, and kind of what you said, Zach, is like, it's not just that they don't go back to the Super Bowl. It's the way that the season unraveled. It's what you could look at and be happy about, which is not much at this point. And they also ran it back. Like, what did they really lose from last year's team? Right?
The coordinators.
Yeah, they specifically brought back the corners. They brought in talent in the draft. Like, Jalen Carter's been really good. Like, it's not like they did anything wrong per se, like roster wise. I mean, obviously the corners haven't played as well and whatever else, but ultimately it is what it is. But all right, we're gonna get out of here, though.
I think that's a big thing for a lot. If your team is playing this weekend and does not make it to the next week, just because you lost in the first round of the playoffs does not make it a lost season. There's a lot, and I think there's a lot of teams that are here that are like there's been a lot of talk on Dolphins Twitter this week about whether this season is a success or not. It is extremely difficult to make it to the playoffs. Look at the
AFC.
To make it to the Super Bowl, to make it to the playoffs, and in both leagues, for what you have to do for 18 weeks to make it there with injuries, and you saw it compound at the end of the season for the Dolphins, you saw it compound in the middle of the season for the Bills, and for a lot of other teams. Like, there are stretches. If you made it here, congratulations, you made it here. Is it awesome to get a win? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, making the postseason is absolutely a success for a season. That should be your goal every year, not necessarily making the Super Bowl, because that's so difficult. There's so many chance things. A Super Bowl visit, or even to an extent an AFC championship or conference championship, shouldn't be necessarily a make or break thing. It should be making the postseason, maybe getting a couple wins if it's been a few times in a row. But like, this is a major accomplishment for a lot of teams.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Zach. So we're going to get out of here. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the playoffs, both of you and everyone watching, of course. Hopefully your teams win, unless you're Tony, of course, because I'm playing against him. But also, if they do, Listen, I don't know how much I care at this point. Like, does anyone
want to see Mason Rudolph again?
That's kind of the thing, right? Is like,
who would the Dolphins end up playing if the Steelers won?
The winner of the other game.
So it's either you're either hosting Cleveland or you're playing.
Well, Houston? Cleveland will be hosting you because you're the 6th seed.
Oh crap! I keep forgetting we're not the 5 seed. Crap.
Yeah. So either you're going to Houston
we really choked this away.
You're either going to the Browns or to the Texans.
So our only option is if the Steelers run the table and we run the table, and then we can host you guys at Hard Rock. We can get one good weather game.
Yeah, probably.
There we go.
That would be the worst AFC championship.
Dude, the worst. Especially if the Steelers. Dude, all I'm saying is if the Steelers make the Super Bowl this year somehow, I apologize to everybody who has to watch it happen because the amount of bad football that would have to take place for that to happen is monumental. But all right,
it's gonna be everybody's curse for saying that Mike Tomlin should have been fired.
That would be poetic for sure. All right, we will see you guys next week. We'll talk about next week's matchups when they happen. Enjoy the week. Maybe we'll find out some head coaching hires in the next week or so. We'll see. But again, signing off. We'll see you guys next time.